Hey guys, it's Missy from the Book Rat, and it's time for my March rewind. So this is a look back at what I read in March with a quick thumbs up, thumbs down rating, and a little bit on why. And though I should have been much better in March as far as reading the things I was supposed to read and really pushing through, I still did get more than I was anticipating done, so comme ci, comme ça. So here are the books. We're going to start with the book that I read last of the month, just because it happens to be on the top of the stack, and that is Titan Magic, Body and Soul by Jodi Lamb. This is a sequel, so I'm going to try to avoid any kind of spoilers in my little review-ish thing here. But basically I read this one for Fairy Tale Fortnight, would have read it regardless, wanted to read it as soon as possible, but read it for Fairy Tale Fortnight, and as expected, big thumbs up. I really love the world and the characters that Jodi Lamb has created, and I love how she deals with them. It is very atypical. It doesn't feel like other things that I've read, which is really saying something when you consider that it's based in mythology and fairy tales and things that we do actually kind of know. It's about golems and about sort of, mythological magic, and there are fairy tale aspects like Snow White and Sleeping Beauty-ish things in there, and we're familiar with that, so the story should feel slightly been there, done that, and I say that as a person who loves retellings and loves the comfort of having a story that's well known, retold well. Even though I know certain elements and recognize certain elements, that never means that I necessarily know what's coming, and it doesn't mean that I know how Jodi is going to interpret those elements or use them. They're always worked in really skillfully, they don't feel obtrusive, and they're just layered and sort of infused with like philosophy and really authentic emotion, and she just kind of nails it for me. I don't want to go on about this one forever because I still have to actually review it for you guys, so I'm just going to stop there. No, really, I'm just going to stop there because my camera cut off. Apparently it's doing voice commands now. So we will see how much more we can get through before it cuts off on me again because the battery's draining for some reason and I'm over it. But anyway, long story short, I like Jodi Lamb's writing. I also read This One Summer by Mariko and Gillian Tamaki, and didn't love it as much as I was hoping to, but still did like it. Definitely does get a thumbs up. I think it's something I'll appreciate more with further rereads, and I do appreciate it, but appreciating and liking aren't always the same thing. I did like it, and I found it funny, and it has heart, and it did kind of capture being a certain age and that sort of slice of life thing, and I like that. But I guess I was just waiting for a wow moment. It didn't necessarily come. It just wasn't entirely what I was expecting, and so maybe I'm holding that against it a little bit, but it's still a good slice of life coming of age story, well told and really beautifully illustrated, so thumbs up. And I'll be talking more about that in the This One Summer blog tour in May, so keep an eye out for that about second week of May. I also read Ophelia the Marvelous Boy by Karen Foxley, which is a retelling of the Snow Queen. I'll be talking about this during Fairy Tale Fortnight, of course, since it is a fairy tale retelling, but it gets a thumbs up, but not nearly as enthusiastic a thumbs up as I was expecting. I have multiple friends who I normally agree with who rated this 5 stars and raved about it and loved it, and maybe it's because I love Anne Ursu's Breadcrumbs so much, which is also a retelling of the Snow Queen and kind of uses the story in similar ways, that this fell short for me. Breadcrumbs is stellar and really knocks it out of the park, and so I was kind of holding this to that standard, which isn't fair. You shouldn't compare books because they're not the same books, and they shouldn't be. I mean, authors should have their own stamp on things. Just as East by Edith Patu suffered because I loved Sun and Moon, Ice and Snow so much by Jessica Day George, sometimes even when a book is a good book, if it's not the book that you are anticipating or that you've fallen in love with, you kind of can't help but hold it against it. I did like it. I did have some issues with it, but I did like it and I found it enjoyable, but just not what I felt like I was promised from my friends' very high, praiseful reviews. So, whatever. It is what it is, but I did like it and I would recommend it. For the March Wednesday YA Book Club, I read The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken, which definitely gets a thumbs up. We had a whole Twitter discussion in which people were kind of torn. Liz liked but didn't love it. We had a couple people that, definitely had issues with it, and some people that didn't join the chat but kind of implied that they really didn't like it. I really liked it. It is a slowly paced book, so I can understand why it might kind of put people off a little bit, but to me the pacing felt right for the story, and that's what matters to me. I don't need something to be action-packed and forced if that's not what it feels like is called for. So even if something is slow, or even if it sometimes drags, if that feels like that's right for the characters and the story that's being told, I respect it, and that makes me like it. So it is a little slower, but not in a way that bothered me. If you don't like slow reads, it might bother you. But I liked it. I really liked the characters, and I liked getting to know them and their dynamics, and they affected me emotionally. I connected to them, and that is something that I really prize in a book. It's not to say that I didn't have issues. There were some things that just didn't feel very realistic to me, or just not very believable. It does take a pretty big willing suspension of disbelief. I did suspend my disbelief, but it was always kind of there in the back of my head saying, really? That aside, if you're willing to go with it, I really enjoyed it, and definitely will be reading the rest of the series. I also read Return of Zita the Spacegirl by Ben Hotkey, which you probably knew I was going to read. There was no way that I was putting this off. It doesn't come out until, I think, late May, but I read this pretty much as soon as it came, which was like the very, very beginning of March. Maybe it was a birthday treat to myself. Whatever, I don't need excuses because it's Zita, and I love Zita. It's bittersweet because this is technically the last book in the trilogy, but it's open-ended enough that I'm hoping, there are threads it could go on, and in my mind it will, because I'm not letting go of these characters. I loved it. Of course I loved it. I always love Zita. I think I want to be her for Halloween this year. I love all of the characters. Ben has this uncanny knack to make me connect to the most ridiculous character within seconds. There's a little tiny rock, like a little lump of coal with eyes. It doesn't do much in the story, and I felt for that stupid little rock. So yeah, I mean, it's just to give him thumbs up, always. I also read Stolen Songbird by Danielle L. Jensen, which is sort of fairy tale-esque, epic fantasy about trolls, and thumbs up. I don't want to say too much about this because it is in the April stack of 5, and I believe that it's winning, so this is probably going to get a video review for Fairy Tale Fortnite, so I don't want to, have to just repeat everything in that and have you guys be bored out of your minds, but I really liked this, and I think it was the right book at the right time. I'd been in a little bit of a reading funk. I was liking the things that I was reading, but nothing was making me love it the way I wanted to. And this came along, and I can't even tell you what it was, but I just connected with it, and it was one of those books where when you finish, you're kind of disappointed that you're done with it. So I would be at work and I would be thinking like, oh, I'm gonna go home and read Stolen Songbird. Oh, no I'm not, because I'm done. And I love when that happens with a book. It sometimes sends you back into a funk because you have post-good book syndrome, where you just can't move on to another one because you're still in the old books world and you're still wanting more with those characters, but that's a good book to me. Something that leaves me wanting more always gets a thumbs up. Oh, my battery's about to die. That was everything that I finished reading in March, but I also attempted to read Love Letters to the Dead by Ava DeLera, which just wasn't winning me over. So I'm going to try. I'm not giving up on it yet. It's not that it was bad, but it just wasn't gelling for me, but didn't happen in March. That was everything I read. Let me know what you think of the books in the comments, and if you have read or want to read any of them, and let me know about some of your standouts or epic fails of March. That's all for now. As always, thanks for watching and happy reading!